Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are the Independent's chief football writer Miguel Delaney and the Mirror's chief football writer John Cross. Welcome to you both. Let's quickly run through the back pages. Sun all about dominated one story. Trent Alexander-Arnold's Liverpool exit. Sun's headline, Trent's tainted love. Kop will feel let down by Madrid move, says Cara. Also have the Monday Night Football on their back pages. Murillo to the rescue for Forest. Telegraph Sports section, Alexander-Arnold off to Real, plus Itoje is favourite to captain Lions after Doris's injury, and Zhao is snooker's first Chinese champion. Inside pages of the Mirror, the one and only John Cross writes, final chance. Arsenal stars will be playing to beat PSG, but also for their futures at the club. And the Times, the hardest decision of my life. Trent told Liverpool in March he was leaving. He will sign a 6-year deal with Real Madrid. Also carry the story that Kane Doris is a doubt for the Lions. And extremely sad news that 2 riders have tragically lost their lives after a crash at the British Superbikes Championship in Cheshire. OK, let us start then with the back page of The Sun. And Trent Alexander-Arnold's tainted love, writes Charlie Wyatt, friend of yours, no doubt, as well, John, in The Sun. Is this the right angle, do you feel, or should we be more celebratory and positive about England's right-back making this bold decision?
Well, Teddy, let's be honest here. I think we've known it's been coming for a while. I mean, I think it's quite bold for the Times there to sort of say, you know, he actually told Liverpool in March. So look, it's been no state secret. I think the story today was the confirmation, you know, Trent going on social media, and then the reaction, frankly. And so there, I do think that sort of kind of sums up the mood quite well, really. It's a real poster back page, by the way, isn't it? I wonder whether they've done that because of sort of kind of VE celebrations sort of at the front end of the book, maybe. But so it does look quite a striking spread there across the back. And look, you know, they take in some Jamie Carragher comments, you know, which he's obviously been talking a lot today. He, you know, talked on sort of kind of Sky earlier, didn't he? He's done a column in the Telegraph. You know, he's got very strong opinions. And listen, I actually really agree with him that basically he's quite right in saying, you know, how dare kind of journalists tell Trent, sort of Liverpool fans what they should be thinking about Trent Alexander-Arnold. I do think he's right. It's always a dangerous game to tell a fan base what they should think and what they should say. But equally, let's not kid ourselves here. You know, he delivers a really nice anecdote in his column in the Telegraph about being asked by, you know, sort of former Sky interviewer Jeff Shreves about whether he'd one day leave Liverpool for pastures new Jamie Carragher, and he sort of says, why on earth would I? Well, you know, that's good for Jamie Carragher, but on a similar vein, you know, kind of what gives him the right then to kind of, you know, preach and tell absolutely everybody that, you know, what they should and shouldn't do with their careers. You know, it's up to Trent to be honest. By the way, I really like Jamie Carragher. I think he's one of the best around and sort of fantastic pundit, really such an interesting columnist. And that's why we talk about him a hell of a lot on this show, don't we? But I do think that's what the whole point, isn't it? It's all about opinions. I don't think we should tell what other people what they should think, but equally, Trent Alexander-Arnold, I think, has handled this quite well. I think he is a player who's seen out his contract. When on earth should he say publicly, you know, that I'm off? Should he have done it 2 months ago? Of course he shouldn't. You know, and basically, I think he's been quite, you know, gracious in the way that he's handled it. Of course, Liverpool fans are upset, but he wants to push himself and go and try something new in Real Madrid. And honestly, I don't think we should begrudge him that. I think it's something to be admired from an English player, trying different things, going abroad, looking at how his mate Jude Bellingham has actually set the world alight. I tell you what, on a broader scale, I actually think that Alexander-Arnold might just get more appreciation as an attacking, offensive right back than he perhaps does in English football.
Yeah, in fairness, Jamie Carragher never had Real Madrid come knocking as far as we know in that regard, albeit he was a good part-time fullback as well. Mirror Tara, Trent confirms Kop exit. Good headline in your paper, John. It's been the hardest decision of my life. Now he's poised to join Real on a free transfer. Picking up on that point, Miguel, what could this do for his career and his performances, Trent Alexander-Arnold, the stage at the Bernabeu?
Well, we're already talking about someone who's he's one of the best right backs in the world, a global star, which I think from knowing people who know him or kind of moving those circles, um, Trent has always had this kind of international outlook rather than necessarily one based, I suppose, around being a Liverpool player. And it was funny, actually, I did notice it being in Germany for the Euros last summer. Just how prominent a lot of Trent Alexander-Arnold branding was in a way you don't necessarily see in England, or certainly outside Liverpool in that way. And I think that maybe spoke to some of his ambition in that way. And like, yeah, look, I mean, Liverpool are one of the game's great clubs, one of the most successful clubs, you know, England's most successful clubs. But on an international scale, and certainly looking, I suppose, to South America, there's always been that feeling within football. I mean, look, you only have to look at the European Cups, the 15, the trophy cabinet for the extra dimension that Madrid brings. And I do think there is another angle to this as well. I have to say, if I was an uber talented figure in my mid-20s who had the choice to try a completely different country, a really kind of envied culture like that, an envied club, in a way where there's kind of no cost or risk to you in that sense, I would say I take it. But that does touch on something different, I suppose. I mean, obviously, clubs are more than businesses, and naturally fans will feel all the kind of emotion that comes into that. But on the other side, players are professionals, and they have to think about their own career, what they want, their own ambitions, their own kind of lifestyle. And that does bring it, even though I would always say clubs are so much more than businesses, they're football clubs, they're social institutions. A player necessarily has a transactional relationship with the game. So it's why one of the arguments that's been put forward about how, say, or one of the irritations has been how he's going for free, there's no fee and all that. But I mean, for any individual to get themselves into a situation where they're kind of weakening their own leverage, especially when they have a dream move like this. And let's not forget as well, Madrid now have this business model where they pay high fees and low wages for younger players, teenagers, early 20s, and then look to get older players, those maybe in their prime, which Trent is certainly in his prime, if not older. They try and get those on free so they can pay higher wages. So there is an argument that had he actually signed a new contract, Madrid would have lost this opportunity. And I know fans won't like to look at it in that way, but this is just an individual thinking about his own career. And again, I agree with Crossy there. On Jamie Carragher's point, and I agree, again, Jamie's a brilliant pundit, hence we talk about it so much, and I agree with a lot of what he says. In this case, I would say, I suppose, it's not telling Liverpool fans what to think to be surprised maybe at some of the response. That's where I'd come from with that one.
From Liverpool's perspective, for Chris Bascombe with this piece in the Telegraph, John, how Liverpool paid for taking eye off the ball 2 years ago. The suggestion here that perhaps they should have tied Alexander-Arnold down, but Miguel indicating that maybe that wouldn't have worked in any case from Real Madrid's perspective. John, what's your read on the situation regarding the contract?
Yeah, Teddy, that really caught my eye, actually. It's a really interesting piece by Chris Bascombe, the Telegraph's Merseyside man. He's incredibly well informed and always up to speed on things. And it's a really, telling comment piece, really, just about how, frankly, if they'd really gone for it 2 years ago, and 2 years out, of course, is the premium time, almost the last chance saloon, if you're a well-run club, if you like, to go and re-sign a player to a new contract. You don't want them drifting into the final 2 years, which is exactly what Liverpool allowed to happen. And I do think there's a difference between, starting talks in the summer with 2 years to go, to actually really going for it for the player and saying, you are a future captain, we're going to throw you this much money. People reported elsewhere, by the way, that Liverpool were prepared to make him the highest paid right back in the Premier League, potentially world football. They made him an astonishing offer, which he, turned down in more recent times. But I think there's a difference between that, when you've allowed him to go into the final year, and really nailing your colours to the mast 2 years out. That's the difference. The other thing I thought that caught my eye, I think, in Chris's piece was that basically just says that, look, they're not necessarily going to buy to replace. They're going to stick with it and give Conor Bradley a real go at right back next season, which I think is interesting. I think that will catch the eye of a lot of Liverpool fans, won't they? Because I think if there's an anger from Liverpool fans, it's towards, yes, Alexander-Arnold going for free. I think there'll be a little bit of hurt and resentment amongst some, not all, towards him for going for free, but also towards the owners for allowing it to happen. So I wouldn't mind betting that quite a few sort of kind of, Liverpool fans and readers will be watching, reading that and saying, well, I told you so, basically. So I do think that Liverpool maybe it's the 2-year out, if you like, window of opportunity that they've missed, and that might frustrate fans most.
And the fans may be frustrated or wondering where the creativity might come from in his absence that he brought so well. In The Guardian, Miguel, final Trent Alexander-Arnold comment from us at the moment. Adios to Anfield, Alexander-Arnold set for Real Madrid as he confirms Liverpool exit. And Andy Hunter here writing that Alexander-Arnold's believed to have verbally agreed a 5-year contract with Real Madrid, with reports in Spain claiming it'll be worth about £7.5 million a year after tax. How exciting in terms of positionally, creatively, what he brings to Real Madrid, Miguel, possibly under Xabi Alonso, because they've been searching for a midfield playmaker, haven't they? Do you think they'll try and use him in a more creative way than just an orthodox right-back?
I initially thought that, but there's been some chatter over the past week or two that actually they plan to use him in some sort of right-back or right-wing-back role. Because, this is the other side of Madrid. People, I suppose, are looking at Trent in the context of Ancelotti's team right now. Alonso is a totally different manager in that way. He's going to come in with his own system, and it could be completely different. And I do wonder, maybe, if he does go with 3 at the back, you obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold won't play there, but it'd be maybe out wide to something a bit different. And yeah, it might bring a completely different dimension to his own career as well. Mind you, there could be some interesting dressing room politics there as well, given Danny Carvajal is quite an abrasive member of the Real Madrid team, a long-serving member, has that right back spot his own for you. So Alonso might have to sort that out.
Yeah, it's going to be some interesting conversations, I'm sure, as well. And we'll be asking whether he's learnt Spanish as well, won't we? I'm sure in due course. Trent Alexander-Arnold, see how he gets on there. Let's talk about the race for Champions League football. The Monday Night Football finishing 1-1 between Crystal Palace and Nottingham Forest. The Mirror's headline, Murillo does level best to keep Forest in. Hunt, the defender, with that deflected shot. John, how important is that? Does it keep them on track? They're kind of crawling towards the line, aren't they?
No, I think they needed to win, Teddy, to really kind of put themselves in a really stronger position, if you like. But I do think the point keeps it alive, because honestly, I think Forest, they've got Leicester on Sunday, followed by West Ham, and then the final showdown between the battle for top 5 against Chelsea on the final day. So look, I do think that Forest, they could easily win those final 3 games, is what I'm trying to say. So I think that point just keeps them in the mix and keeps it alive, really, and that's the most interesting point. The thing is that a couple of these teams play each other, don't they? Chelsea against Newcastle on Sunday, for example. Arsenal got Newcastle. Arsenal are not completely safe yet. So Man City, I wouldn't mind betting that Man City, they've got Southampton, Bournemouth, Fulham, are going to end up finishing second, which after everything they've had, if they end up winning the FA Cup as well, then I actually think that what a season that will be for Guardiola. But look, I think Forest, you still got to be realistic about this. Even if they get into sort of kind of 6th or 7th and get a European place, what a season for Nuno and his players. Yes, there'll be an element, of disappointment, maybe not sneaking into the top 5. But I tell you what, they've still got a chance of doing that. And then what a season that they've had. Murillo's a big blow if he's out injured. He limped off with a hamstring, didn't he, during that game? And I have to say, Forest's level dropped immediately. He's such an important, influential player. But I do think Forest, what a season. So I think that Forest fans, I'm sure, will be celebrating rather than lamenting, I think.
Nice headline in the Express, Miguel, regarding the game. Nothing crystal clear for Forest. Palace, arguably by far the better team on the night, weren't they? 2.5 expected goals. I think Forest were fewer than 1. What do you read on the opportunity, the race for Champions League football, Miguel? They are a couple of points off Chelsea, but as John said, rather convenient final few fixtures.
Well, it's funny, because this, of course, is the FA Cup final that could have been, and probably wasn't, because Crystal Palace have suddenly been surging into form. Brilliant, really. I was at their semi-final. They were incredible. Whereas Forest have kind of just started to really level out. And that's just to pick up something Crossy said there as well, I suppose. 6th or 7th place even, actually. Given where Forest were for the last 2 years, or long before that, it's still massive overperformance. But in the context of the season, given where they were, they've clearly kind of, Chris Wood isn't scoring to the same level. They're not. There may be a slight element of teams haven't figured them out that bit more that's making it more difficult. But then another competing emotion against that as well is they have got these 2 very winnable games as part of the last 3, potentially setting up what could be a chaotic final 2 weeks for the Champions League race.
Yeah, against Chelsea, aren't they, to round off? That'd be fantastic finale. Quick word, John. I think we should have it on Ebere Eze. 10th goal of the season, scored 3 games in a row. How good is he? And what does the future hold for him this summer, do you think?
Oh, well, I wasn't surprised they gave him man of the match. It was a good call. And basically, I think Tom Goodman gave it to him. And what he just makes the game better. He makes it entirely watchable. He's such a talent. Thomas Tuchel was there tonight, wasn't he? So I think in the first instance, I would say he's really, really pushing hard, for an England start, if you like. And then I do think that the one thing that I think that counts against him is that a little bit older. So, and then I also think that Palace are trying to go places. I mean, Wharton also catches the eye. What a game, what a player he is. So I think they're obviously trying to keep him, and maybe winning the FA Cup, getting into Europe aids them that. But I tell you what, Eze is just a wonderful player to watch. I love watching him play. He plays with a smile on his face as well, which I love. He's a nice sort of likeable character. He just does things. The ball is glued to his foot. He can play at the very highest level. When you see how well Elise has done, I've no doubt that sort of Eze could have a similar impact somewhere else too.
I know it ages us, but he does remind me a little bit of Paul Gascoigne as well, with that dribbling style and the enthusiasm as well. John, Miguel, thank you very much for now. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's papers, including this in the Mirror. We'll get John's take on his piece. Final chance. Arsenal stars will be playing to beat PSG, but also for their futures at the club. Welcome back. You are watching Back Pages tonight, and it's welcome back to the Independent's chief football writer Miguel Delaney and the Mirror's chief football writer John Cross, who's written this piece in the Mirror. Final chance. Arsenal stars will be playing to beat PSG, but also for their futures at the club. John, tell us who you're talking about here.
Well, I think there's a few players, Teddy, who really I think stood out for different reasons in the Champions League campaign. And what a night it promises to be. I'm off to Paris in the morning to go and see PSG Arsenal Wednesday night. And look, I do think there's a few players. Thomas Partey there pictured. He's out of contract at the end of the season. Of course, look, he wants to stay. There's no doubt about it. He's done extremely well on the European stage. Looks a really, really, polished, accomplished midfielder, doesn't he? But I do think they're going to sign Zubimendi in the summer. So what does that then mean for him? I think Jorginho moves on. I think Kirill, for example, is a great example of someone who's really seized the moment. And throughout Gabriel, there's no doubt they've missed the big Brazilian defender. But I think Kirill has really actually done extremely well and played almost his way back into sort of kind of thoughts, even if it's, being part of the squad for next season. So, it swings and roundabouts really. But I do feel as if I wrote something the other day about whether this season, if Arsenal go out on Wednesday night, whether it's a backward step for Mikel Arteta and Arsenal this season. I think it is. I would say it's a big backward step, bearing in mind that they were the team that's supposed to step forward and win the title this season. They've been very disappointing in the league, in the Premier League, very inconsistent. They've not got momentum going together. So if they don't then, reach that Champions League final, I do think it's a backward step. And I do think then they'll have to look at maybe strengthening. It's obvious that they want to sign a centre forward, but I also think they want a left winger. And therefore, I think Martinelli or Trossard will have to be sacrificed. In my mind, Martinelli has done himself a world of good in the Champions League campaign, particularly in the last few games. He's shown that he's still got that potential and that pace to unlock. So it's those kind of things that, in the next few weeks and indeed on Wednesday night, some of those Arsenal players, I think, have got a big opportunity to be part of the long-term restructure, because I do think Arsenal need a bit of a reset this summer, I think.
Outside of the Champions League, Miguel, John says it's a backward step. What's your read on the club, and should it be about the players, or will there be an examination of the manager as well?
I think there are rational or there are explainable reasons for where they are. A lot of factors in it, but there's no question really. I mean, the feeling going in, they're going to. I mean, they had 3 seasons of steady progress in a row. From 2023, they had 83 points, went to 89 points last season, just pipped by City at the end. And I suppose, the expectation was that we just go to that extra level. It hasn't happened. I think there are enough reasons for no one at Arsenal to panic. But certainly, maybe some questions should be asked, certainly about, I suppose, the injury record, especially given that one of the undercurrents of this entire campaign has been that one of the reasons Liverpool are champions is because they've managed to keep their best talent on the pitch, and that isn't luck. So that's something to look at. But I think when Arsenal's squad, as it is now, is fully fit, I think it's in fairly good shape. It does need additions, which they will go for. And then I suppose it's about I think it's definitely in the league. It's been a backward step, and they mightn't even finish second in the end. But I don't think that is massive cause for panic. It's if the same issues play out next season, that's where the bigger question should come. But for the moment, of course, all this could be wiped away depending on what happens this week. I mean, and this is the kind of the fascinating thing about this match, because this is really, unless there's a final, there's an entire season really going into Wednesday night. And I'm the same as Crossy. I'm going to getting the Eurostar tomorrow, and with some anticipation of what could be one of the occasions of the season.
Well, hopefully you can meet up and travel together, chaps, and have a cup of coffee on the way over. I don't know what time you're both getting that train. We'll find out. Happy journeys to you both. Before you go, though, let's talk a bit about Harry Kane, John, and your piece here. A striker rejected by Arsenal in his youth. I bet they regret that. But a joy for the England great, because Kane's gong wait is over. What's the real significance of this, do you think, him getting this medal? Is it big for his legacy, big for his confidence? What do you think?
I think it's massive, Teddy. I think it's fantastic for Harry Kane. I'm a huge Harry Kane fan and admirer. I tell you what, I think it's vindication for all of his hard work. I think it's vindication for his incredible single-mindedness, his great professionalism, his determination. I mean, a few years ago, he was told, he's not quick enough, he's not powerful enough. So he works on that and he overcomes it to improve his speed. Then he's told, you never win anything. So he eventually goes to Bayern Munich. And look, I just think people say, oh, he's bound to win a trophy. Then, well, he didn't last season, and yet still scored an absolute ton one load of goals. He's England's record goal scorer all time. And I just think, he's got more golden boots, than anyone else. I mean, it's astonishing. He's second in the Premier League all-time list. And yet I still feel that there's an element of underappreciation and undervalue. And we don't know how lucky we are, I think, as an England sort of kind of team and supporters to actually have Harry Kane. I think he's an absolute footballing god and deserves a bit more appreciation. And I tell you, the significance of this is winning a trophy really kind of, is just, I think, underlines and highlights just what an achievement and what a brilliant professional and character he is. I love Harry Kane.
Brilliant. I love it. What a glowing tribute as well. Let's hope it rubs off on England as well. Only got about 30 seconds, Miguel. Quick thought on Manchester United. Jeremy Cross reporting that Garnacho's been offered to Chelsea for £65 million. And Mirror also saying Man United may only want to keep 4 players, including Bruno Fernandes and Maguire. What's going to happen there? Is there going to be this fire sale?
Well, it's going to be a busy summer, but of course the issue is United need clubs to want to come in for their players at prices they consider acceptable, and that's why, even though we expect a lot of PSO churn at United and a lot of big overhaul, really, there's still a bit of tension about that because it's same issue as in January. Garnacho was offered Chelsea then and didn't happen.
Going to be very interesting to watch. Thank you, John. Thank you, Miguel. Speak to you very much soon on Back Pages tonight. If you missed any of the show, another chance to see it at hour. Also available as a podcast. Download Back Pages, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. As you can see, we're back on Tuesday night. The guests are David Ornstein and Riyad Al Samurai.